Hey guys, what's going on? It's Eli back with another review video. 2010 was indeed a pretty big year for Disney. Lots of pretty big films that came out that year, especially a good majority of them that definitely was the experience of seeing them with 3D glasses, but also in the case of IMAX. Yeah, not just some of Disney's films, but a bunch of other films like I could think of, say, How to Train Your Dragon. That was another big, movie to experience with 3D glasses, but also in IMAX. Well, with Disney, and in the case of live action, and within the case of Tim Burton, one film of Tim Burton's, which actually would mark his first ever film to direct that's something Disney, and ever since, he used to be a part of the Disney company, being a part of the animation group, but when he got fired, and even when he did come back, working alongside with Disney, collaborating with them, bringing to life this, well, fast forward, and in the early 2010s, when it began, he would, in fact, direct his first ever Disney live-action film. Yeah. And yes, of course, that's right. You read the title and you know what this is, of course. Yes. From 2010, Tim Burton's Alice in Wonderland. Yes. Tim Burton's Alice in Wonderland. Holy cow, because, man, so many fond memories of when this movie came out for all of us, because, yeah, I'm sure the same goes for a lot of you. And for me, the first things I have to say about Tim Burton's Alice in Wonderland, well, I, of course, remember the time when this was coming out, along with a lot of other big films of Disney's, like, again, as I said at the start, 2010 was a big year for Disney. A good batch of films that was coming out of Disney's, from this, Toy Story 3, Tron Legacy, and a couple of others, but yeah, primarily for me, because, yeah, the ones that I can think of most notably are this, Toy Story 3, and Tron Legacy, but yeah. But for Tim Burton's Alice in Wonderland, yeah, because I remember when seeing the trailers. I remember when my family and I, when we had gone to Disney World, and if anybody remembers this, company clips, yeah, I remember, like, I personally, I always had company clips being played on the TV and such in our resort room, hotel room and such. And, well, at the time of when we were there, and before Alice in Wonderland came out, maybe it was a year before Alice in Wonderland came out, whichever which, either 2009 or early 2010. Probably it probably was 2009, but point being, I remember seeing, whenever it would be replayed, the trailer for Tim Burton's Alice in Wonderland, the Mad Hatter did a bit of narration and so on, yeah. And I'm pretty sure that, yeah, at the time, me and my parents, I think we were looking forward to this, yeah. And I don't seem to recall if we did see this in theaters. Maybe, but obviously, and later on, yeah, we, of course, would watch this on DVD and Blu-ray, owning a copy, and, yeah, I seem to recall that the first time I had seen and watched it, I enjoyed it. And having done a rewatch of this, and on account that, yeah, I'm now reviewing this film, yeah, I mean, Tim Burton's Alice in Wonderland, sure. I understand that it's unfortunately not one of his top gems, pretty much, yeah. But there can be those, like me, that actually think that this is okay and quite enjoyable. And it's very interesting with what this piece of Alice in Wonderland material has to offer. Even what Tim Burton had to say about this, where, with what he and the others brought to this, and something quite different and new. Yeah, because, despite the title, maybe, yeah, the title of this Alice in Wonderland film should have been maybe something else instead of Alice in Wonderland, because, you know, the time and setting of this Alice in Wonderland film, it takes place, 13 years, especially after when Alice first made her way to Wonderland. But most heavily in the film, they keep referring to Wonderland as the underworld. Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. I mean, because since, you know, Alice literally travels her way down a tree and down a rabbit hole, so yeah, go figure. But yeah, and just, you know, looking at some of the behind the scenes and fun facts, you know, doing a bit of research, of course, just in case, and on account of my review, yeah, because this being a reimagining, you know, as Tim Burton has said that word before, you know, most notably with his Planet of the Apes movie, but yeah, I understand, hey, I'll go with what Tim Burton says, of course, but yeah, just this reimagining of the world of Wonderland and how this Alice in Wonderland film is done. It's pretty interesting, yeah. And again, just having done a rewatch, I still enjoy this, and I think that what Tim Burton's Alice in Wonderland film has to offer with its storyline, its cast of talents, you know, this movie had some pretty good cast of talents, and whom played these characters. At least in my opinion. Maybe you guys would think so too. The stunning, beautiful visual effects, you know, the fact that Alice in Wonderland uses a lot of green screen, but yet at the same time, still looks amazing. The aftermath and post-production, and of course, you know, because, you know, with your cast members not seeing what is there, but being directed and such, they did pretty good, yeah. And with Danny Elfman's music and score, some, you know, unexpected moments here and there, you know, pretty cool moments, and with funny moments of the characters, some pretty memorable quotes, I guess you could say, from some of the characters, and of course, you know, with Tim Burton's direction, and yeah, just, you know, what more do I have to say? For me, just in all honesty, as I always am with movies, I really enjoy and like Tim Burton's Alice in Wonderland. Again, it's not one of his top best films he's done, but, you know, I mean, it is what it is. But, again, there are those like me that think it's okay, and, you know, it's pretty interesting with what this movie does. And, you know, that does remind me, because it does go in the same direction as did Steven Spielberg's Hook. And then years later, the same thing would happen with another Disney live-action film, Christopher Robin, where your main characters who were once in this mysterious land, in the case of, yeah, Peter Pan, he was once in Neverland, Alice, she was once in Wonderland, and Christopher Robin was once in the Hundred Acre Wood. Years later, all three of them have grown up, and they've completely forgotten everything, and think it's just all a hallucination, it's all a dream, but it turns out not to be, and their memories would be restored. So, that whole thing. So, yeah. That's a pretty interesting thing to do that those movies had to offer, you know, with those ideas. Pretty interesting. Also, to go ahead and mention this because, yeah, and also to mention a little bit of background as well before I read the description / the story, because, yeah. Well, because, yeah, here's the thing, because, you know, Alice in Wonderland from 2010, because it was in development since 2007, and eventually, yeah, it would soon go underway, and I do remember slightly that in 2009, yeah, when D23 happened, actually, because if I remember correctly, 2009 was the first time I ever knew about D23, the D23 Expo. And yeah, of course, from what I can remember, and revisiting, YouTube videos of the 2009 D23 Expo, because the lineup of movies at the time that were announced, from this, of course, Tim Burton came out to talk about Alice in Wonderland, the next Pirates of the Caribbean film, Johnny Depp came out as Jack Sparrow, obviously on Stranger Tides, the announcement for National Treasure 2, Old Dogs with Robin Williams and John Travolta, the announcement for, I think it was obvious, because the Muppets came out on a Mark Twain riverboat, they sang Rainbow Connection, obviously that was there was an announcement for a new Muppets movie. Yeah, in 2 years. And also, Robert Zemeckis coming out for the announcement and talks about A Christmas Carol. So, yeah, I remember that, and I'm sure you do as well. So, yeah, again, Alice in Wonderland being one of those films that was announced, and, yeah. And not to mention that Tim Burton, because he was asked to do 2 3D films. This, and, well, it's obvious that the following year it would be Frankenweenie, because, yeah, that would be the second Disney film that Burton would direct, and, of course, Frankenweenie being stop motion. And also, fun fact, to go ahead and mention her, one of the first considerations to play the title character, Alice, in Wonderland, was the lovely, talented Anne Hathaway. But she turned it down because she felt that that was very similar to some past roles that she did. However, when Burton did come on board, she was now interested in taking part of Alice in Wonderland and being directed by Burton. So then, that's when, of course, she would be offered the role of the White Queen. But until I talk about the White Queen some more. Yeah. Okay. Also, with some background talked about and done with, well, I do want to point this out because, you know, a lot of people cite Tim Burton's Alice in Wonderland being what started the whole thing of Disney live-action remakes, but no, that's not the case, guys. It's not, because here's the thing. I feel, and maybe I've got a point, where I feel that when Disney live-action remakes began, I really feel it was around the time when, say, Maleficent and Cinderella happened. Don't you think? Just, yeah. And plus, Disney had already done some live-action remakes in the past before Tim Burton's Alice in Wonderland, and just, yeah, and Tim Burton's Alice in Wonderland, no way is it a remake of the animated version. How is it, like, why would it be? Because is it, how can you tell? Just, yeah, but point being, and as I was saying, because, yeah, some past live-action films that Disney did that were remakes, well, you know, best examples, 1994's The Jungle Book with Jason Scott Lee as Mowgli, and in the late 90s and in the early 2000s, those 2 live-action 101 Dalmatian films with Glenn Close. Yeah, there you go. So, already, they were doing a few. At the time, they did a few live-action remakes, most prominently 101 Dalmatians, but it wasn't until, say, around 2014, 2015 that, yeah, that's when things really started to kick off with Disney doing some live-action remakes, yeah. I mean, you know, Maleficent, well, that's another story, but Maleficent, it's just a retelling. It's a different take on the story of Sleeping Beauty, where Maleficent would become the hero. Okay, so, yeah. But again, that's another story. But anyway, so I just thought I'd point that out because that is a biggie. That is a biggie, and I'm sure you guys probably, you know, feel the same way too. But you heard it from me that, yeah, there's no way that Tim Burton's Alice in Wonderland is what started off the Disney live-action remakes. That's impossible. Yeah. All right. So, now with that out of the way, and with the first things I've had to say about Tim Burton's Alice in Wonderland all out of the way, okay, now, as always, for me, read the description / the story. A young girl, when she first visited magical Underland, yeah, as it's referred to constantly in the film, Alice Kingsley is now a teenager with no memory of the place, except in her dreams. Her life takes a turn for the unexpected when, at a garden party for her fiancé and herself, she spots a certain white rabbit and tumbles down a hole after him. Reunited with her friends, the Mad Hatter, the Cheshire Cat, and others, Alice learns it is her destiny to end the Red Queen's region of terror. Okay, now with reading the description / the story out of the way, let us now dive into the movie itself, finally. Okay, so, yeah, so, and by the way, because this is the first film of Tim Burton's where it does not have any opening credits. Yeah. Okay, so, well, we see Alice's father, Charles Kingsley, whom is doing some business talk and such when when Charles' young daughter, Alice, at 6 years old, being played by young Myri Ella Challen, if I said that right, she had a bad dream, and Charles, tucks her back into bed, and young Alice sharing to her daddy about what she had dreamt, a blue caterpillar, a cat that smiles, and painting the roses red, all of that stuff in Wonderland. And, Charles, this really shows that, Charles is such a great father to Alice, and, how he views and, sees with what his daughter explains, and, just that they're dreams, and that if there's any point that, she's having a bad dream, something bad happening in her dream, then she can wake herself up, and just, pinching her a little, so a good father and daughter relationship right there, and, views Alice as being someone that's not really mad, and he just, even plays along that, you are mad, yeah. And, well, I think it's obvious that, 13 years later, as I said earlier, because sadly, Alice's father has passed away, and, and again, Charles Kingsley, being played by Martin Sikois, if I said that right? Yeah, couldn't forget to mention his name, but, so, again, 13 years later pass, and now we see a teenage Alice Kingsley being played by Mia Wasikowska, if I even got her last name right. Again, you know me sometimes. She and her mother are attending this party that's being hosted by Lord Ascot, being played by Tim Picott Smith. Yeah, and, because he being a businessman, and because, he knew Alice's father, Charles, and such, and because, Lord Ascot planning to do some business stuff and to expand it, throughout the world, and it was mentioned that Alice's father, Charles, was a visionary man, and what he had envisioned, and, well, sadly, wouldn't get to live to see what he wanted to happen, Also, Alice's mother, can't forget to mention her, Helen Kingsley, being played by Lindsay Duncan. Yes, Lindsay Duncan, she's a very talented actress, and I know I've seen her before in other stuff, but So, and also, Alice is the opposite of, say, her mother and others, where, how she wears her wardrobe and with her stockings and so on. And so, so again, they attend this, this party being hosted by the Ascots, Lord Ascot, as I mentioned, and his wife, Lady Ascot, being played by Geraldine James. I think, I said that right. And, because unbeknownst to Alice, this party is actually a commitment party, because someone is going to ask Alice for her hand. Marriage, proposal, And, some of the other characters we see, because, we see the boy who is going to ask for Alice's hand, Hamish, being played by Leo Bill. Also, Alice's aunt, Imogen, if I even said that right, being played by Frances de la Tour. And, I recognize her. She, most prominently, we would know her as the tall lady, from Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire, her. But she's done more than that, and she's another talented British actress. And to go ahead and mention more about the aunt, because there was a moment where Alice, interacted with her aunt, and her aunt is hallucinating some, because she thinks that she says and claims that her fiance is going to show up, but she doesn't have a fiance, a boyfriend, and so on. And also, there's a moment where these sisters, the Chataways, Faith Chataway being played by Eleanor Gex, and Fiona Chataway being played by Eleanor Tomlinson, they want to mention this to Alice, and it does slip out that, this being a commitment party, and Hamish is going to ask Alice to marry him, and so on. Also, Alice's sister, Margaret Kingsley, being played by Gemma Powell. Well, by this point, she's married, and her husband, Lau, being played by John Hopkins, there's a moment where Alice catches Lau hooking up with another lady, making out with her and such, and at least Alice doesn't tell on him, but yeah, in fact, at the end of the movie, Alice would tell Lau that, she'll keep an eye on him, and to make sure that, Lau will treat her sister properly. Yeah. Good point, Alice. Yeah, I agree with her. But yeah, just all the stuff that's going on at this commitment party that Alice would find out about, and it's all happening too fast for her, and at the time and setting of this movie, back when, parents who were very grand and such, making the choices and fate for their children, and in the case of marriage, and whom they shall marry to and such. Yeah. And Alice, there are a few times where Alice talks about, anything that could be possible, but, they just find it rubbish. Like, Hamish and the others find it impossible that, we could fly and so on, but little would they know. Yeah. But anyways, also, during the commitment party, there is a moment where Alice, and when she's having a stroll with her soon-to-be mother-in-law, Lady Ascot, well, there's a moment that when they're walking in the garden, one moment where Alice points out to her that, Lady Ascot, she primarily points out to Alice about the roses being turned to white. They were supposed to grow red, but instead they grew to white. And Alice mentioning, and just like what she saw in her dreams, maybe the roses can be painted red, and Lady Ascot just finding that baffling. But besides that, there is a moment in the garden where Alice notices a very few quick seconds that a rabbit is, running through the shrubberies and such, the shrubbers. Nobody has seen the White Rabbit except for Alice, and we, the audience, we quickly are seeing the White Rabbit, but until we get a full good look at him, and it's the White Rabbit in the code, from the underworld. And to speed things up some, because the moment has come for Hamish to ask for Alice's hand in marriage, and not to mention that they're being painted, at the concert stand, the stage stand. And also there was a moment where Alice noticed a blue caterpillar on Hamish's shoulder. He was disgusted. "You should wash your hand." Oh, Hamish, grow up. It's just a harmless caterpillar. Of course she'll wash her hand. But, But anyway, so Hamish asking Alice if she'll marry him. But with this happening so fast, and her seeing the White Rabbit, she tells everybody that she needs to take a moment. But more than just a moment, because we know where this is going. So then she starts to follow the White Rabbit. Then she makes her way down the rabbit hole into the abyss. And, just like before, because even though she can't remember, she doesn't remember for now, going down the abyss, everything floating in the air, and when she's upside down the ceiling, then she would make her way into the room where, there's the glass bottle that reads, "Drink me," and a piece of cookie, that, has a tag that says, "Eat me." And we can hear some voices from another side of the wall, like from a door, where, some of the voices are saying that this is the wrong Alice. What's this about? Well, we find out in just a moment, because, Alice struggling trying to, get through a door, she has to shrink herself down, but yet she has to go back for the key that's on top of the table, and by eating the cookie and such, and, from there on. So eventually, she's the right size, she's got the key, going through and entering back into the underworld, again, as it's referred to. And this is where we would see our cast of characters that reside in Wonderland/Underworld. Well, we of course have the White Rabbit, and I've kept forgetting that, most of them I've kept forgetting that they voiced these characters, The White Rabbit being voiced by Michael Sheen, and Tweedledee, Tweedledum, obviously they would be played by the same actor, and yes, Tweedledee and Tweedledum both being played by Matt Lucas. This was one of my earliest introductions to Matt Lucas, pre-Doctor Who, because I think that's what we most notably know him from as of now, Doctor Who, because, when he would be one of the companions with Peter Capaldi as the 12th Doctor, that's him. So before that, he was in this. But yeah, so we have Tweedledee Tweedledum. We also have the Dodo being voiced by the late Michael Gough. And by the way, because Alice in Wonderland would be one of Michael Gough's last movies before he would, sadly passed away. Also, for a few lines, Imelda Staunton, aka Umbridge, she voices one of the tall flower faces, just for a few lines. And also we have the Dormouse, but the Dormouse goes by a different name, but she's credited as Dormouse, so I'm sticking with Dormouse. And that's another thing, because some of these characters in Wonderland, they do go by different names, but we know who they are by their names from Mad Hatter, Cheshire Cat. Just stick with those. Anyways, not that I'm really complaining, I'm just simply saying. Because, of course, they're easy to remember, right? So, yeah. But anyways, so the Dormouse being voiced by Barbara Winsor, if I said that right, again, you know me sometimes. So, yeah, all of them complaining that the White Rabbit has brought the wrong Alice, because Alice is not as she appears, like, remembering all of this and so on. Well, not to mention, of course, that Alice has grown up. I mean, they would have known, of course, that Alice would have grown up, right? I'm just simply saying. And what they do next is they take Alice to meet with Ambrose. Yeah, I think I said that right. AKA the Blue Caterpillar. Yes, and the Blue Caterpillar being voiced by the late, good old talented Alan Rickman, AKA Professor Snape. Yeah, and Alan Rickman had previously worked with Burton most prominently in Sweeney Todd. Yes, if you know, you know. If you remember his part. But yeah, so Alan Rickman, who voices the Blue Caterpillar, making Alice think that she's not the Alice, and pointing out to Alice and the others to look at the scroll. The scroll being referred to as the Oraculum, if I even said that right, yeah. And it's basically a visual record of every day in Underworld since day one. And yeah, from the beginning of time. Yeah, that's right. And it's not just a historical document. It also hints at future events. So, with that, because on this day, when Alice arrives to the Underworld, Griblick Day, Alice's arrival in Wonderland and her encounter with what she would come across in a few minutes until I get there. And one day that's prominently mentioned that will soon happen, and will happen, and Alice is going to be there, and it shows what she's going to do. But despite the fact, she doesn't remember the underworld and so on. But it's going to happen, as the scroll says so. It does not lie. A day called Farabish Day, if I said that right, yeah. The day Alice slays the Jabberwocky. Yeah, the ending of the Red Queen's region. That's right. Also, another day that's mentioned, Haravendage Day, if I even pronounced that right. A day of significance for the, Red Queen and her rise to power. So that was another day that was mentioned. So Alice is supposed to slay the Jabberwocky, but apparently Alice will not harm anything. And everybody now believing that this is not the actual Alice. It's the wrong Alice that the White Rabbit has brought. And yet when the White Rabbit was so certain that it is Alice, and Alice thinking, and she does mention this a good chunk of times throughout the film, that she thinks that this is all just a dream, and she's going to wake up, and by pinching herself, even when the Dormouse offers to help out by stabbing her foot with his tiny sword. Yeah, but all of that is interrupted when the Bandersnatch steps in, the Bandersnatch. Yeah, this creature that is, serving the Red Queen, and all chaos is unleashed when the Bandersnatch and then the Red Queen's guards, they pop in and start to capture each of the creatures of Underland, from the Dodo, the the flamingos, 2 flamingos, and yeah, obviously we know the presence of the flamingos in Wonderland, and because of the Red Queen, the White Rabbit as well. But luckily, from, say, the Dormouse to Tweedledee and Tweedledum, they survive being captured, as well as Alice. And even the Bandersnatch was this close to getting Alice, but the Dormouse stepping in and capturing one of the Bandersnatch's eyes, literally with taking the Dormouse taking his sword and poking the eye out, literally. Well, I mean, that's Tim Burton for you. You know, dark stuff and such, but anyways. But yeah. But even after that, because, yeah, Alice escapes, Tweedledee and Tweedledum tag along, but when they're trying to figure out which way to go, the Jube Bird steps in and snatches Tweedledee and Tweedledum. So now they're captured and being taken directly to the Red Queen's castle. And the location of the Red Queen's castle is Salazin Grum. Yeah, Salazin Grum. And the Red Queen, enter then Tim Burton's main lady of his films, Helena Bonham Carter. Yeah, and come on. I think, you know, with what Helena Bonham Carter brought to the Red Queen was pretty good, you know, because really nailing how the Red Queen should be. Very aggressive and temper tantrum and such, and very shoutable. And when we're first introduced to the Red Queen, it already starts off pretty good, where, you know, she brings in some frog servants, yeah, because one of them supposedly ate some of her pies, yeah. And when she notices one of them with something around his mouth, and it's gel, yeah. And, well, the frog just, you know, then saying, "I was only hungry, I have a family," and, yeah, off with his head, and, yeah, sayonara, poor frog, and, yeah. Then the Red Queen is informed by her right-hand man, whom is the captain, I guess you could say, yeah, best way to describe him, of, the Knave of Hearts. There we go. Yeah, the Knave of Hearts. Yeah, good thing it's listed on the IMDb page, on the credits. The Knave of Hearts, the main leader of the guards, the card guards, Stan, if I said his name right, being played by George McFly himself, Crispin Glover. Yeah. I don't know, because I had seen Alice in Wonderland before I had seen Back to the Future, so I don't know. I mean, I guess, yeah. Tim Burton's Alice in Wonderland was one of my earliest films to have known Crispin Glover. And, you know, Crispin Glover, yeah, I mean, he's a weirdo, but at the same time, he's a great actor. And he fit well in the world of Tim Burton and in the case of Alice in Wonderland. And looking at the behind the scenes, the fact that Crispin Glover, such a great sport at this, he did such a fantastic job, because the fact that when you look at the behind the scenes, his suit and getup is entirely green screen. Yeah, they didn't actually build a costume for his character. No, that was all green screen. And Crispin Glover having to stand on stilts. That was amazing. Yeah, he did a fantastic job at that. And the aftermath, and because, yeah, his digital suit, armor, well, looked pretty good. And yeah, Stan was a pretty interesting character. You know, just with what Crispin Glover brought to the performance, I'm just saying. And, you know, the fact that the Red Queen especially does have a thing for Stan, but Stan, not so much, you know. In fact, he would have a thing, definitely for Alice, but until I get there. Yeah, so Stan, he had taken the scroll and had brought it to the Red Queen and mentioned that, yeah, the day that the Jabberwocky is going to be defeated and killed by Alice, and, well, yeah, the Red Queen ordering to, you know, the search of Alice and such. Meanwhile, Alice, still strolling through Wonderland, and it's in the evening time by this point, well, Alice would then come face to face, I should say, with the Cheshire Cat, and the Cheshire Cat being voiced by good old Stephen Fry. Yeah, so the Cheshire Cat, you know, greeting Alice and helping out with Alice's wound, because Alice did get clawed by the Bandersnatch. Yeah, and very gruesome, and it's very contagious or something. Just, yeah. So the Cheshire Cat, you know, binds it, and when Alice says that her name is Alice, the Cheshire Cat's like, the Alice? But, with everybody saying that, there's a debate that she's not the actual Alice, and the Cheshire Cat, and I agree with him that, I don't get involved in politics. Yeah, neither do I. And the Cheshire Cat offering to help Alice to go straight to the Hare and the Hatter, and that's what happens. And right as it translates, well, we see the moon in the sky, and then, it becomes a smile. The Cheshire Cat in the sky. That was pretty cool. So, then we make our way to where we would see the Hare, the Hatter, and once again the Dormouse. Because, again, the Dormouse was one of those that did escape and survive, not being captured by the Red Queen's guards and Stan. But overall, because, seeing the March Hare and the Mad Hatter and Dormouse once again, and the March Hare being voiced by Paul Whitehouse. Yep, Paul Whitehouse, another talented British actor. And the Mad Hatter himself, Johnny Depp. Yes, Johnny Depp as the Mad Hatter. Come on, I too, just like what I said about the Red Queen, Helen Bonham Carter, Johnny Depp, he was another fantastic performance in this movie. I'm just saying, because, come on, it's Johnny Depp. How can you not love Johnny Depp? And with what he brought to the Mad Hatter, especially multiple times that the Mad Hatter would change accents from American sometimes, but most of the time it's British and Scottish. Yeah, he does it pretty well. And, with what both Johnny and Burton, they came up with, and a different take that they brought to the Mad Hatter, if you know this, that was pretty good on them. Yeah, and, it seemed to work, at least in my opinion. But so Alice making her way, seeing the Hatter, the Hare, and the Dormouse. The Dormouse pointing out to the Hatter and the Hare that, the White Rabbits brought the wrong Alice. But the Mad Hatter, no. He knows it's Alice. And I just love the delivery of dialogue that Johnny delivers as Mad Hatter. You're absolutely now Alice. I know you anywhere. I know him anywhere. Calling Alice him. And, you're terribly late, naughty. And because it's tea time, and the Cheshire Cat popping in. And, Mad Hatter mentioning about down with the big head, the bloody big head and such. That being a chant, and for the rebels who are against the Red Queen and such. Yeah, because there's a rebellion, and those who are against the Red Queen, and because not to mention that things that have changed in Wonderland. And ever since the Red Queen had taken over. But more details on that further on. But the whole sequence of the Tea Party is great. And also there's a mentioning about something that occurred that the Cheshire Cat and the Hatter each bring up. And the Cheshire Cat saying to the Hatter that what happened on that day was not his fault. And the Hatter just losing his, pardon my French, but it's true, losing his shit towards the Cheshire Cat, you're an Odin, and so on, "Pour no more," and his eye color, and just it changes, and losing his temper, and the Dormouse calming him down, Hatta, and he's just like, thank you. And, well, Hatter, he used to be quite a dancer, and the name of the dance that's brought up, why not? I'll put a text, just in case. So, right there, The name of the specific dance that Hatter does. But anyways. So, then, at one point, well, Stan and the Queen's Royal Card Guards, they show up. Not to mention that, can't forget to mention him as well, Bayard, this dog that is serving for the Red Queen, but actually, he's a rebellion spy. Bayard being voiced by Timothy Spall. Yep, Timothy Spall. And he too had previously worked with Burton in, Sweeney Todd. Yep. And also, that's another Harry Potter cast member, from Alan Rickman, Helen Bonham Carter, Timothy Spall. All being a part of Harry Potter and such. And the same goes for Paul Whitehouse. But anyways. Bayard sniffing around, and, well, Hatter had hid Alice in a teapot, and when Bayard can smell the scent of Alice in the teapot, well, Hatter, quickly mentioning the words, down with the big head and so on, and, yeah, everything's good, and Bayard, pretending that, there's no Alice here, and, go search somewhere else. And, yeah, especially with also from Hatter, the March Hare, and the Dormouse doing some distraction stuff and keeping Stan occupied and well by singing Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Bat, and for Stan and the others not to suspect anything, and good thing, and when Bayard then scattered and such, and they left. And after that, well, Hatter has to take Alice out of here and from there on, and to help her with her destination. And this is where Hatter, now speaking in a Scottish accent, about the day that everything changed in the underworld, and back when the underworld / Wonderland used to be under the leadership and such. It was ruled, I should say, by the White Queen. And yes, the White Queen, who we briefly see in a flashback, and the White Queen, of course, as mentioned earlier, being played by the lovely, talented Anne Hathaway. Wonderland / the Underworld, it was such a happy-go-lucky place, and we see a festival going on, and the Mad Hatter, who was the main hatter of the White Queen. But out of nowhere, this celebration and festival is interrupted when, the Red Queen's Jabberwocky emerges, unleashing chaos and burning the place, and the White Queen had fled. Her crown was, it came off of her head, and now being worn by the Red Queen herself. And by the way, because the Red Queen and the White Queen, both of them are sisters. And with the mentions of, how each of them view one another. I mean, the White Queen's still having a soft spot for her sister. And, according to the White Queen, and as we learn, because the Red Queen just being corrupted by negativity and being blind where, because nobody appreciates her more than, say, her sister, the White Queen. And how it would be heavily be talked about some more in Alice Through the Looking Glass, but that is another story. Okay, so after all that, well, Hatter, he's the only one that survived and still in that burning place, and recovering his hat, and thus he would become the Mad Hatter. Then after that, well, the card guards are in pursuit, and Hatter, because he had placed Alice on top of his hat as transportation, her carriage awaits. Well, by flinging his hat far away into the other side of the river, and, well, the Mad Hatter being taken in by the card guards and so on. Meanwhile, for Alice, well, because she would remain underneath the Mad Hatter's hat, and when dawn hits, Bayard would show up, and, of course, would address to Alice that he's a rebellion spy, serving for the White Queen, but pretending to serve for the Red Queen because it is mentioned that Bayard's wife and pups are being held hostage and will do the Red Queen's bidding when and if, his family is spared. So, but I think it's obvious, and as it would be mentioned, the Red Queen would not keep her promise. No. Anyways, I mean, of course, eventually, we would see that Bayard's wife and pups, they would be all right and well. So, but until I get there. So, Alice tells Bayard to take her directly to where the Red Queen's castle is, and not go where the White Queen is. I mean, obviously, that's where she'll be safe and sound, but she wants to help the Mad Hatter. Definitely. So she has Bayard, by carrying the hat and with her to where the Red Queen's castle is. And eventually when they would make their way, Alice has to, hop on some stoned faces that are in the river, and yeah, then she would make her way further into the Red Queen's castle, and we would see where the Red Queen is playing some croquet. Yes, of course, with the hedgehogs, and using the flamingos. And one of the flamingos, apologizing to the hedgehog for what is happening. Well, surely the hedgehog would understand. And Alice, still being small, well, the hedgehog does make her way to where she is, and she helps out the hedgehog by freeing the hedgehog, the White Rabbit being sent to retrieve the hedgehog, the White Rabbit reuniting with Alice, and, White Rabbit being disappointed, and, oh, it's the Alice who I did not bring, and so on, just being negative about this and towards Alice, but yeah. But, overall, Alice asks the White Rabbit if there's a way that she can grow some, and luckily the White Rabbit still has some of that eat me cookies and such, so yeah. So giving one to Alice, however, bad timing, but luckily Alice manages to convince and fool the Red Queen that she's not Alice, because when she grows, yeah, that's when she meets with the Red Queen, and instead of referring to herself as Alice, which, yeah, that will expose her, she's referred to as, just, that's it. And apparently, Alice making an excuse that, she was, kicked out of where the White Queen resides because of how big she is, but the Red Queen being happily accepting Alice to be a part of her kingdom and so on. Yeah. So, yeah, everything, that seemed to work, and yeah, no suspicions, anything like that. But yeah, so, then, and to speed things up some, because yeah, Alice now residing in the Red Queen's castle. Also, there's a moment where Bayard did travel his way to the White Queen's castle. The location being Memorial. If I even said that right again, you know me sometimes. Yeah, it's the kingdom of the White Queen. That's what it is. So, yeah, Bayard coming back to the White Queen, informing the White Queen all about Alice and so on, and just, yeah. And, yeah, to go ahead and talk more about the White Queen, well, I mean, Anne Hathaway, she brings a really good, delightful performance to the White Queen. The White Queen is definitely someone you just in awe of, because she's such a very sweet and caring person, and a very kind ruler. Just, yeah, the queen that, of course, everybody in Wonderland prefers over, say, the Red Queen. But anyways, so yeah, it's coming back to the Red Queen's castle, because, yeah, well, from, say, Tweedledee, Tweedledum, there's a moment with them where they come in. One of them, they both recognize Alice. However, one of the twins does tell the other twin to not say Alice's name, and even Alice was telling them not to. Just, yeah. Well, good on one of the twins for telling the other one to just zip it. Just, yeah. Then the Mad Hatter coming in and, being questioned and such. Then, it's brought up where the Mad Hatter offers to make a special hat for the Red Queen's big head. And because, yeah, the Mad Hatter being quite an expert and very crafty on making nice-looking hats. And thus, that's what he does. He's technically set free, but not really. Still being a prisoner, but to, yeah, make hats for the Red Queen. Also, can't forget to mention the Red Queen's employees, because, yeah, many of them, the way they look, like one having a long pointy nose, kind of a pointy nose, also, one with a big chin, a big, floppy belly and such, which, yeah, Hatter would discover that one of them, and obviously the same goes for all of them, they're fakes. All that stuff, like from the one, and also another one with big ears, but the one with the nose, the chin, they're all fake, and yeah. But anyways, so, yeah, and still to speed things up some because, yeah, so, a nice reunion between Alice and the Hatter. Even when, the Hatter just, he has another tantrum and starts to, break some stuff, fling it around the room, but Alice, being there to comfort him and to calm down, and that, the everybody in the Red Queen's castle, even her, they're the crazy one. So yeah. And also there was a moment where Stan, as I did mention earlier, he tries to make a move on Alice, and one of the Red Queen's employees. Okay, so right there, yeah. Okay, good, because that's how they're credited. Great, because, yeah, that helps. Yeah, even for me. Woman with large nose in the Red Queen court. So, yeah, everybody that's a part of the Red Queen's court. The woman with the large nose being played by Holly Hawkins. Woman with big ears, okay, being played by Lucy Davenport. Man with large belly, as I mentioned, big flop belly, being played by Joel Sweto. I think I said that right. Woman with large poitrine, if I said that right, but obviously know what it is. But yeah, being played by Jessica Olio, if I said that right. And Ethan Kahn, he plays man with large chin, I mentioned the chin part. And Richard Alonso, he plays man with big forehead. Yes, big forehead, yeah. And like I said, Hatter would first discovering the woman with large nose, and obviously the same goes for all of them. They're fakers. All of the stuff they have on, from the large nose, big ears, large belly, they're all fake. So, as I was saying, Stan trying to make a move on Alice. Well, the woman with the large nose did notice this / caught this. And, well, obviously, she's going to tell the Red Queen about this, especially on account that, well, the Red Queen has a thing for Stan. And even if Stan does, but he doesn't really. And also, Alice, she's attempted to locate and find, because it is mentioned earlier, about a sword, a specific sword that Alice has to use that is an arch enemy to the Jabberwocky, and that being the Vorpal sword. Yeah, again, it's the enemy to the Jabberwocky, so it's somewhere in the Queen's castle, but where? And even when she would reunite once again with the White Rabbit, also the Dormouse did get captured, but yeah. And talking it out with the White Rabbit, the Dormouse, Tweedledee, Tweedledum, and even when, because eventually the White Rabbit especially would help Alice, help her to know where the sword is. Also, Alice demanding the Dormouse to give her the Bandersnatcher's eye, because, yeah, again, the Dormouse had stolen the Bandersnatch's eye, and, even Alice telling the Dormouse to shoo. But anyways, and man, who'd have thought, because the Dormouse, in this specifically, would be very intense, like, not giving it no shits. Like, part of my French was true. I mean, unlike, say, compared to the Dormouse in the animated Alice in Wonderland film, where very rude indeed, just, This Dormouse is the total opposite and very aggressive, but, hey, that's pretty cool. Anyways, so Alice getting the Bandersnatch's eye, and the White Rabbit helping out Alice where the sword is, and where else would it be than, the shed where the Bandersnatch lives in, and even the White Rabbit noticing Alice's wounds from the Bandersnatch, he faints at the sight of it, and by this point, it's getting worse, And even when Alice walks in her way, once again encounters the Bandersnatch, well, Alice, she does give back the Bandersnatch's eye, and, just trying to make peace with the Bandersnatch. And with this, well, she, of course, then finds the chest that holds the sword. However, it's locked, and, well, she would discover that the Bandersnatch has the key around his neck, and, well, then Alice, she then passes out because of the wounds of the Bandersnatch. Even the Bandersnatch also passes out too, okay, because it's that bad and has a horrific smell. Yes, and as I mentioned, the woman with the large nose would tell the Red Queen that Stan tried to make a move on again, because that's what she's going by, not Alice. And, well, even during that, Mad Hatter was presenting the Red Queen with various hats he's made for her large head, and, as I mentioned, the Hatter would discover that, starting with the woman with the large nose, that it's fake, and making a laugh about it, but just, the Red Queen doesn't even notice it, and just, he's completely mad. But the woman with the large nose would tell the Red Queen that Stan made a move on which being Alice. And the Red Queen, oh, she's furious and jealous. However, by the next day, Stan did the opposite. He lied to the Red Queen, telling the Red Queen that made a move on him, not him on her. But yeah, and well, the Red Queen believes this and wants to be taken care of, off with her head and so on. Meanwhile, Alice, she did wake up, and thanks to the Bandersnatch, offered Alice the key, even mended her wounds by licking it. And well, by this point, they're even. Even Alice figured that out. So she then gets a hold of the sword, and when it comes to Stan and the card guards going to execute Alice, well, yeah, the Hatter stepping in and helping out Alice with the situation by throwing things and so on, and the Dormouse helping out as well by freeing the Hatter and so on, and, well, the Dormouse accidentally lets out Alice's name when the Dormouse shouts to Alice, "Run, Alice!" Like, yeah, that reaction right there, and that's when Stan, realizing that Alice, and, run, says the Mad Hatter, and just, spraying some perfume in his one eye, because, did I forget to mention that Stan, he has an eye patch that's in the shape of a heart. So, now, Alice has been exposed, and, they now know it's Alice, and when it is mentioned to the Red Queen, luckily, the Bandersnatch did get loose and did help out Alice from being almost killed by the card guards and Stan. So, the Bandersnatch offering Alice a ride, and thus they make their way to the White Queen's kingdom. And well, the day Alice is going to slay the Jabberwocky, it's upon them, and it'll be happening very soon. So, Alice and the Bandersnatch, along with Bayard, they make their way to the White Queen's castle, and this is the first time that Alice is meeting with the White Queen. Also, because the White Queen offering to help Alice get back to her normal size because she's still big and tall. They make their way to the kitchen. The March Hare is there. "You're late for your soup." Now he has a thing for soup and not tea, but So good thing that the March Hare's all right. The White Queen keeping him safe and sound, and the White Queen just putting various things in, to make this potion or something to, this liquid to help Alice grow back to her rightful size. Even taking pieces of fingers or something, and because I read where the White Queen cooking and such, that was based off of something that Tim Burton came up with. I'm sure you guys probably know what it is, but very interesting. But that doesn't stop the fact that, such a sweet and delightful character the White Queen is. But anyways, so, Alice drinking what the White Queen offered her, and now she's back to her rightful size. Then, later that evening, someone wishes to see Alice, and that being the Blue Caterpillar. Because, still, the Blue Caterpillar questioning Alice, are you the real Alice, and so on, And to say more about Alan Rickman, because, how can you not love Alan Rickman in anything he's in? And I think that, my opinion, of course, what he brought to the voice performance of the Blue Caterpillar, that was pretty good. Of course, the Blue Caterpillar being very wise and such, and, and just, help, in his way, just helping out Alice, eventually when Alice would realize that this is not a dream and so on, Anyways, so, then, coming back to the Red Queen's kingdom, well, both the Mad Hatter and the Dormouse, they are soon to be executed, off with their heads, of course. And, the Cheshire Cat, after quite a while, because the last we saw of him was when he was at the tea party, goodbye, and that was the last we saw of him, but until now, offering to help out the Mad Hatter in this situation, but, is very fond of his hat, but that would lead to where, when the time comes where both the Mad Hatter and the Dormouse are about to be executed, their heads chopped off, Mad Hatter is first, then the Dormouse is next, but Well, turns out it's actually not the Mad Hatter. We do see, and when we cut to the face of Mad Hatter, it's actually the Cheshire Cat in disguise as the Mad Hatter, and the Executioner, and for one line, it's Jim Carter. Yeah, he's the voice of the Executioner with just one line. Yeah, because the Mad Hatter preferring to keep his hat on, and yeah, by chopping off his head, then the Mad Hatter vanishes, and the hat starts to float in the air, and it turns out to, of course, to be the Cheshire Cat. And then the Mad Hatter stepping in, and then, thanks to the Mad Hatter, exposing all of those in the Red Queen's court, with the nose, large chin, forehead, all that, all of them being exposed, and the Red Queen obviously being furious. Then, the Mad Hatter getting everyone to chant with him, down with the blood, with the big head, and so on. Yeah. Also, to name some of the other cast members, because, yeah, High Top Hatter Juggler, being played by Chris Grabber, if I said that right, in the flashback that Hatter tells. Hatter, Futter, Whackin' Dance Double being... okay, so I didn't need to put a text. Okay, Futter Whackin', that's right. The Futter Whackin' Dance Double of the Hatters being played by David Elsewhere Bernal. Yeah, so the dance double for Johnny Depp, basically. Also Frank Welker, he did some additional vocal effects, yeah. But that is with the exception of the Jube Jube Bird, because the Jube Jube Bird actually, the sound effects for the Jube Jube Bird are actually some of the same sound effects that were used for the probe whale in Star Trek IV, The Voyage Home. If you know, you know. That's pretty cool. I'd recognize any of those specific sound effects any day. But yeah, because the Jube Jube Bird was set loose, and everybody's scrambling, but thankfully, of course, yeah, Tweedledee, Tweedledum, the Dormouse, the White Rabbit, Cheshire Cat, Mad Hatter, they all escape, as well as Bayard's wife and Pubs. Yeah, they escaped as well. They all escaped. And eventually, they would make their way back to the White Queen's kingdom. And yeah, Alice happy to see that the Mad Hatter is safe and sound. And because, despite the fact that Alice still, by this point, believes that it's all a dream, she caring for those in Wonderland, especially the Mad Hatter, But yeah, and a sequence where Hatter and Alice are talking, and there's something that the Mad Hatter brings up. It's basically, yeah, this. Why is a raven like a writing desk? And yeah, what is it? And just something random that the Hatter brings up, because yeah, this wordplay works because yeah, a writing desk can produce musical or written notes. Yeah. But yeah, by Mad Hatter sharing that to Alice, but yet, Alice sharing to the Hatter that still, she thinks that this is all a dream and that she will wake up. And, her saying to the Hatter that he's just a figment of her imagination, and Hatter's, saying that he won't exist anymore when she wakes up, and so on. But nope, Alice, not realizing still yet that this is not a dream. It is for real. But yeah, so the day is still upon them. Yep, because with Flabbersh Day, yep, Flabbersh Day is still upon them. And yeah, because the day does finally come. And, well, yeah, because everything is put together. The armor, the sword, but that is except the champion. From Hatter to the others, they willingly volunteer to be the champion, but no, the scroll made it very clear it's to be Alice. Yeah, the scroll does not lie, as I said earlier. And yeah, and even the White Queen, she does establish to Alice that it's her decision. It's up to her if she's wanting to do this, but Alice finding this hard to process, and she takes a moment, and she has another interaction with the Blue Caterpillar, and where, yeah, this time for sure, the Blue Caterpillar does help out Alice by knowing who she really is. And, with the mentioning of the underworld, but the blue caterpillar mentioning to Alice that Alice had always referred to this place as Wonderland, and with the mentioning of the word Wonderland, that's when Alice starts to have flashbacks and starts to remember that she was here before when she was 6 years old, and we see the events that we know so well of Alice in Wonderland, when she would first encounter the Cheshire Cat, be at the Mad Tea Party, painting the roses red, all of that. So yeah, now she remembers, and now she is going to be the champion to take on the Jabberwocky. Yep, and everybody being pleased to see that, yeah, she's in her armor, she's riding on the Bandersnatch, and yep, Flappers Day has now begun. Yep, everybody at the battlefield, which is pretty clever that, you know, the battlefield is literally checkerboard, yeah. Also, the look and design of the White Queen's guards, pretty cool, just, yeah. But, yeah, so the day comes, everybody in battle position, the battle is soon to begin, the Red Queen and White Queen talk it off, and, you know, even the White Queen, just trying to offer some goodness to her sister, and so on, but, yeah, the Red Queen having none of it. And, well, the champion emerging, which being Alice, and, well, then it would lead to the summoning of the Jabberwocky. And for two lines, we get one of the late horror icons, Sir Christopher Lee. Yes, Christopher Lee being the voice of the Jabberwocky. Again, for 2 lines. We meet again, old enemy, and, I'm talking to the sword. Because, yeah, the sword is the Jabberwocky's enemy, as I said. So, yeah, to speed things up some, because, yeah, the battle sequence between Alice and the Jabberwocky. Then when the Mad Hatter intervenes, tries to help out Alice, distract the Jabberwocky, then the Red Queen's card guards step in, so do the White Queen's guards. Everybody in battle, even when, yeah, a sword fight between the Mad Hatter and Stan. All of this was, was really cool, in my opinion at least, and maybe you guys would think so too. And Alice starting to remember, 5 or 6 things on what to do specifically, and what it would lead to, defeating the Jabberwocky, walking up on these steps, and when Alice hops on the back of the Jabberwocky, then jumps and off with your head. And the Jabberwocky is defeated, off with his head, literally. And also not to mention that Alice, before that, and right as the battle between both of them began, she did slice the Jabberwocky's tongue, cease chattering, and so on. And because the Jabberwocky has now been defeated and dead, now all of those that have served under the Red Queen no longer serve her. Yep. The card guards now turn against the Red Queen, and, the White Queen banishing her sister, and the same goes for Stan. However, Stan, he would like to be spared and be loyal and such to the White Queen, but yeah, obviously that's not happening. And both of them being handcuffed, Stan and the Red Queen. And, well, the Red Queen is happy about this because they can be together, but we can see the look and horror in Stan's face, just shaking and just screw this, and he whips out a knife and he was gonna kill the Red Queen, but the Mad Hatter stops him, and then Stan begging the White Queen to kill him. That's not happening, of course. And also, the White Queen, she will not kill anything. Yeah, because it was mentioned earlier, even when, there's a lightning bug that flies in her face at one point, just, shooing it off, but she won't kill it, just... So, yeah, that's the end and defeat and demise for both the Red Queen and Stan. Yep. Them being banished, and all ending well. And this is where we would see Mad Hatter doing his special dance. And I don't know, because I had no problem with it. I seem to recall that people seem to had complained about the breakdown dance that the Mad Hatter did, just the dancing moves he does, the specific music that plays, just, well, say what you will, but I had no problem with it, anyways. The Fabberwalkin', that dance. So, I mean, because, it's Wonderland for you. So the fodder walking. That's right, yeah. It's Wonderland, I guess it's acceptable. Some various random dance moves that some of these characters that reside in Wonderland/Underworld, they would do. And in the case of the Mad Hatter, yeah, so after that, all of them were smiling and having a good time with what the Mad Hatter was doing. Then the White Queen, she takes a sample of the Jabberwocky's blood, and yeah, Alice is supposed to drink it, and it'll send her back home. Even the Mad Hatter, he suggested to Alice that maybe she should stay here, but she can't. But even with that, she has to go back home. She'll at some point come back, and she won't forget everybody, yeah. And yeah, because they say their goodbyes, and thus Alice, having drank the blood of the Jabberwocky, she's sent back home. Yep. And it makes you wonder, because how many minutes it was when Alice had to take a moment, because it's still that day, right? And the way the sky looks and such, everybody's still there. I'm just saying. But yeah, she makes her way back, and yeah, all dirty and such, her dress and her hair down, and explaining that she fell and hit her head, stuff like that, tumbled and such. And yeah, she then flat out tells them that, yeah, to Hamish, that she will not marry him, and she tells the others that, nobody has to make the decision of her fate and so on. And as I said earlier, makes it very clear to her brother-in-law that, yeah, she'll keep an eye on him and her sister, keep a close eye on them, and telling her aunt to, yeah, seek therapy because, yeah, with her hallucinating, thinking that her fiance is coming and such, and with what she says to the twin sisters, because, yeah, she tells the twin sisters that they remind her of someone in her dreams. Yeah. Also, don't forget to mention, because, yeah, after 13 years later, she still had been having those same bad dreams. But, of course, everything cleared up. And, well, even Alice, she turns to Lord Ascot, following in her father's footsteps in business and helping expanding the business that Lord Ascot does, worldwide. And right before Alice walks off and was going to make her way inside the building to talk business with Lord Ascot, she does a bit of a break dance with her legs, and each of their reactions seem that. Even her aunt just like, yeah, she finds it amusing. But even her mother, just her jaw dropped, yeah. But the epilogue/aftermath, because again, Alice talking business with Lord Ascot, again, following in her father's footsteps, and recommending that maybe they should expand this up to China. And obviously you're aware of what this is, but, I don't know, because I really don't want to think negative about this, and I would like to think that probably it was unintentional of Alice, I don't know, I'm just simply saying, bear with me, God. Yeah. So, yeah, now Alice is taking the business of her late father and would then become an apprentice to Lord Ascot. He asked her to be so. And yep, Alice disembarking, saying goodbye to her loved ones as she boards the boat, and she has an encounter with a blue butterfly whom she presumes it's the blue caterpillar, because yeah, the blue caterpillar, the last time we saw him, and when Alice finally realized she is Alice, and this is all real, yeah, the blue caterpillar was in his cocoon, and yeah, now he's become a beautiful butterfly, as Heimlich would say. Yeah, a blue butterfly, basically. And yeah, Alice saying hello to him, and, well, flies off, and yep, that's how the movie ends. A pretty nice way to end off the movie, when you say so, yeah. But yeah, Tim Burton's Alice in Wonderland, again, I get it and I understand. It's not one of Tim Burton's top best films he's directed, yeah, but that's not the, but for me, and I'm sure the same goes for you, I enjoy this, I don't think it's that bad, it's okay, and it is what it is, yeah. just, everything that Tim Burton's Alice in Wonderland had to offer was pretty good. From the storyline, the time and setting of this, where we see a older Alice revisiting Wonderland, and with what I specifically said earlier, not remembering all of this, but she would. The confrontation of the Jabberwocky Flabbershday, and yeah, the climax, the action, the characters, the suspense, the music and score by Danny Elfman, and also, can't forget to mention this, that, this was a perfect match made in heaven. When you say Tim Burton and Alice in Wonderland, another good complimation, like, you know what I'm saying, just, yeah. Alice, the world of Alice in Wonderland is, a perfect fit for the vision and world of Tim Burton, yeah. But yeah, the visual effects, and with the use of the green screen, it was pretty well done. And just everything that Tim Burton's Alice in Wonderland had to offer was pretty good. I enjoy it still. It is what it is, but yeah, I think it's okay, and I'm sure the same would go for some of you. Yeah. And I'm giving Tim Burton's Alice in Wonderland, well, why not? Yeah, 7 out of 10 stars. Yes, 7 out of 10 stars for Tim Burton's Alice in Wonderland. And what about you guys? What did you think of Tim Burton's Alice in Wonderland itself? What are your fondest memories of Tim Burton's Alice in Wonderland? Any of you remember when this was announced and when it was going to come out? Did you get to experience this in theaters, in 3D, IMAX? Do you think it's not that bad? Are you in that same territory like me where you enjoy it for what it is? You think it's okay? Is it, by any chance, in your top favorite Tim Burton films? I have no doubt. And which are some of your favorite characters? And yeah, just, from Johnny Depp, Mia Wasikowska, but you know who it is, like, bear with me still. Helen Bonham Carter, Anne Hathaway, Crispin Glover, Alan Rickman, all of the great cast of talents, yeah. Favorite lines, favorite moments? Did you think it looked stunning with the use of green screen, the visual effects? Just overall, what did you think of Tim Burton's Alice in Wonderland itself? And with what I've had to say, my review, and yeah, what did you think of my review? Leave comments and give this review video a like, as always. And so, guys, with all that being said, thank you very much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed my review of Tim Burton's Alice in Wonderland. More review videos are coming your way. They're going to be awesome. Keep looking forward, and I will see you guys in the next video / review. And stay tuned later tonight because, well, the next film I'll be reviewing, well, I did mention its name, and yeah, again, 2010 was a big year for the films that came out of Disney's, and later that year, another big live-action film of Disney's that it too would be in 3D and in IMAX. Well, let's just say that, yeah, we return to the world of this arcade game that was created by Flynn. Yeah, you know what it is. And again, I clearly said the name earlier. So yeah, again, stay tuned for that. Take care, and until I review Alice Through the Looking Glass, yeah, we all know how that turned out, sadly. Peace out.